my buddy looked at me and he was like, "You need to get out of here, man." And I was wearing a white shirt and the whole left side of it was dripping blood.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I got stabbed 3 times in the chest.
Oh God.
Yeah.
God damn.
That's gnarly.
Yeah. But that's where it went from there. Like I partied and then had that happen. And that's when the downhill really took off.
Millie makes songs, hey, I made this one. Jerry builds bikes and they go real fast. They're mental defectives.
Welcome to the Mental Defectives podcast, a show where we interview interesting individuals with a focus on addiction and mental health. I'm your host, Milligram. That's Millie if you know me, Mr. Graham if you know me. Joined, as always, by the H.H. Holmes of Harleys, the gearhead with the heart of gold. That was a serial killer from Chicago.
I know.
Okay, great.
I know exactly who
The
that is.
H.H.
Holmes
Holmes of Harleys, the gearhead with the heart of gold. It's Mr. Jerry with a G.
Glad to be here.
And today,
Hold on.
I'm holding.
Hold on. Hit that like and subscribe button if you dig what we do.
Mental Defectives podcast on all your social media. Find us wherever you like to get your podcast because we're there. And today is an extremely special guest who braved a snowstorm to get here. He is a businessman, family man, fisherman. Mess with his kids and he can make you a pair of custom concrete shoes to sleep with the fishes. Please welcome Luke. Luke, how's it going?
Here. That was quite an intro.
I had to merge the two.
Hey,
I was
you
like
did
concrete fishing, sleep with the fishes. Luke, where are you from?
I grew up in Utica, Ohio, which is about an hour east of Columbus, in the middle of cornfields and soybeans and nothing. So
Amazing. Yeah. There's too many cornfields in Ohio. For our non-Ohio viewers and listeners, it really is
That's
just
all Ohio's
cornfields.
known for. Is
That's
their cornfields and bean fields.
it's something else.
Flat.
And then Luke, when did you start drinking?
Oh man, I don't really know my first drink like a lot of people do. Somewhere around 11. And then my thing early on was weed. Like I smoked weed before I drank. I was either 11 or 12, and that was it. I mean, I was never a heavy drinker. When I drank, I did it heavily, but weed was the thing. And in a small town like that, like I think I graduated with like 130 people.
Oh, that's
and there was
small.
Yeah, there was like 80 of them that were heavy into anything we could get our hands on. So yeah, 11 or 12 was my first time experimenting, and it took off from there. I mean, it was exciting and fun in a town of nothing to do. And
Was it like, how do you guys even find weed out there?
That's a good question. I found it from somebody that was like 4 years older than me on the basketball team, and it went from there.
Yep.
So you're smoking weed. By the time you hit high school, were you smoking like every day?
I was smoking every chance I got. Before practice, I was really big into basketball. Like that was my identity kind of. So that kind of kept it at bay a little bit, but I would, smoke before school in people's cars and smoke before practice when we got out of school. And yeah, I mean, it was heavy. And then pills were really big too. Like it was
small town
the whole
Ohio.
gambit. Yeah. Anyone got their wisdom teeth taken out, everybody knew about it.
I was so bad on pills. By the time I got my wisdom teeth out, they gave me like just regular Percocet.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, this ain't gonna cut it, bro. This is not putting a dent in this right now.
Right. I better line 5 them up if I'm gonna get anything out of
Anything.
this.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're in high school. Basketball, weed, dabbling with pills. Where do we go from there?
Yeah, I mean, after high school, I had 2 options really: to go to college and play basketball, or to not do that and do what I wanted. And at the time, like, I thought I wanted to play basketball, but I knew I wanted to do drugs and keep doing what I was doing. So, after basketball or after high school, I was really heavily partying. Like, bonfires were the big thing. So we would have, one of those every weekend or a couple times a week sometime. And that was it. That was the fun, that was what I went and did. And right after, it was the summer after my senior year, one of those parties turned into like a brawl. There was probably 200 people there, and a fight broke out. And I remember going through the fight, and it like cleared out. It was in a garage. There were like 50 people in a garage fighting, you know, people outside the garage fighting, and it all cleared out. And my buddy looked at me and he was like, "You need to get out of here, man." And I was wearing a white shirt, and the whole left side of it was dripping blood.
Ooh.
Oh,
And
shit.
yeah, so I got stabbed 3 times in the chest.
Oh, God.
Gee.
Yeah.
God damn.
Gnarly.
Yeah. But that's where it went from there. Like, I partied and then had that happen, and that's when the downhill really took off, you know.
Prior to that, were you getting like offers from schools to go play basketball?
Yeah, I had a lot of D3 offers, a couple little D2 offers. But the big kicker with that was they can only offer partial scholarships at that level.
Oh.
So it was private schools where tuition is
Yeah.
50 grand and
yeah,
they're
yeah.
giving you 20, but
Yeah.
and my dad was a financial advisor, so he's like, "You're still going to have 120,000 in debt," and I was just like, you know what, it's not worth the trouble. I don't feel like doing this, so I'm just gonna go get high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then do you know what you got stabbed with?
It was a 6-inch fishing knife, like a fillet knife.
God damn.
Yeah, broke 3 ribs, punctured a lung.
Fuck.
It was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in
And
the
you didn't
ICU.
know, like, you didn't have like the impact when it happens.
I
or,
didn't
like-
know. It was like an adrenaline moment. So
Yeah.
everybody's just kind of going, and I just kept going. And then, I mean, I knew after when he looked at me and said that, I like went outside and took my shirt off, and one of them was where I could see it, and then the other 2 were kind of in the side of my chest.
Yeah.
And
God
I
damn.
saw, I mean,
Ugh.
meat and bone and blood.
And it punctured lung, 3 ribs.
Yeah.
And what else?
That was it. I was in the ICU for 10 days, drained.
Yeah.
I mean, it was ugly.
Oof.
Chest tube, intubated,
Yeah.
the whole 9 yards.
Damn.
But I got dilaudid at that point, so that was awesome.
Oh yeah. Did you have the button where you pressed it down? Yeah. Hell yeah.
Tape that fucker down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if I didn't know I was an addict before that, I sure
Right.
did then.
Right.
But
Okay. So what happens after this stabbing and you get out of the ICU and stuff?
I mean, they told me, you know, with the punctured lung and everything, they're like, "Do you smoke?" And I was like, "Smoke what? No." And so they had the idea, but no, it was no smoking, no drinking for at least 6 months, and I made it maybe 2 weeks. I mean, I still
sure.
had, you know, you could see the scab hadn't fallen off yet from the chest tube hole
Yeah.
when I started back at it. And I was on pain pills for 2 or 3 months prescribed after that.
Oh yeah.
And so that's when I felt dope sickness for the first time, was when that prescription ran. I went in for my checkup, and no matter how bad I told the doctor it hurt, she wouldn't write me another one. So it was downhill from there.
Damn. What's the so where do we go from there?
I worked at a pizza shop, and really I had kind of given up on, like, you know, I was told for a long time, like, you have potential, like you can do this and this, you're a smart guy, and all that was just out the window. I didn't care, you know. I
No.
found a girl from my hometown that sold perk 30s and was off to the races with that, and then that wasn't enough, and then I found tar back in the day, which is non-existent anymore.
Yeah,
but
it's not around anymore.
yeah, but within a year of getting out of the hospital, I was shooting up. There was no breaks on that one. It was efficient, you know. It was what I was told was the right thing to do with the path I was on. You know, my spiritual advisors at the time advised me that putting a needle in my arm would make it a little easier. So
The dope man and the filler junkies is the
Yeah,
advisors.
yeah.
God.
And is this in Utica, or have you moved at this point?
I was living in Newark, which is
Ooh, even worse.
Oh yeah,
Shout out to Newark, we love you.
you throw a rock and hit a meth head in Newark. But, yeah, I mean, I was living in Newark, and I met right around that time. I met the mother of my first 2 children, and she had no knowledge of anything addiction related. I mean, she'd like smoked weed once before, so it was perfect. You know, she had an apartment and a car, and she paid her bills, and I could live there. So, I mean, for 3 years, I lived in Newark where she was living and worked at a pizza shop, and all my money went towards getting dope, and I had a roof over my head, and it was something I could maintain to the best of my ability, I guess. And then overdoses starting to happen right around the 3-year mark. It was probably 2017 was when fentanyl really picked up, at least to my knowledge, and that was a whole different ball game. I mean, I got my hands on that and it was over. I'd overdose regularly. I don't even know the number of times I've been Narcan, but it's more than 50.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
And is this like, were you carrying Narcan on you, or like this is like EMTs doing it, or like
the
your
people
friends?
I ran with did a lot of times. I mean, EMTs, I have probably 10 or 12 EMT ambulance rides to the hospital after getting Narcan, but a lot of it was, I had a couple buddies that I got dope from. I wouldn't call them dope boys because they did as much as they gave to me, but yeah, that was, we just ran together. I mean, and we would come to Columbus. They stayed on the east side a lot of times, so it was close to Newark. And it was just a habit, a ritual kind of thing where it was just every day, wake up, get well, go to work, whatever money I could scrape together, take it to Columbus.
Yep.
See if I could save enough to the side to make it in the morning, and then do it all over again.
And never be able to make it to the morning.
No.
No. If you had some in the morning, you were doing all right.
Yeah.
That was, yeah.
I
Few and
remember,
far between.
I remember putting $20, a bag to the side
Yep.
and saying, okay, I'll save this for the morning. And then I'd cut that in half, around 10 o'clock. And be like, that'll be enough to get me well. And I cut that in half. And by the time I got to the morning, I had like sprinkles of dust
Right.
left,
Yeah.
or a couple
Oh,
cottons,
shit,
I'm just like, oh man, no chance, no show.
15 cents worth of dope left. This
Right.
will do it. This will do it.
That'll be fine.
Yeah, and I mean that was the next 2 years probably. That got me up to 2019, where I went to treatment for the first time.
Did you have any hustles in this period, or strictly like off the pizza place?
Not before I went to treatment. I sold weed actually, but a fentanyl addict selling weed is like nothing. I mean,
Right.
I would make enough to buy a couple bags because I smoked weed too.
Oh, yeah.
Not a very proficient business model, but whatever. But yeah, I went to treatment, and I remember walking in to treatment for the first time, still on my parents' insurance, and this private treatment center that I was like, all right, my life's at this point, that I'm doing what the celebrities have to do to stay sober and pull their lives back together. And I really thought that was it. I was like, all right, I'll go to treatment and I'll be sober for the rest of my life, or at least I'll figure it out. Like I had no clue about recovery and the 12 steps and that whole process and how it actually works. I was just, do my 28 days and get out and live, I guess. But that obviously didn't happen. I went to that same treatment center until it was 5 times in 6 months that I checked in.
Oh shit.
And
To a month-long treatment center.
I left a couple times here and there after a few days, but yeah, they knew me real well.
Yeah.
And the last time I checked in, they were like, you've run out of days for inpatient treatment for your insurance. I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing, but here we are.
Oh shit.
And they gave me the option, 2 options: go to the House of Hope 6 months men's treatment center in Columbus, or go to this 3-month long co-ed treatment center in Florida. And so I went to Florida.
Yes, you did.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and I I'm running my own life on my will there. That's where it gets me. But I got kicked out of there you weren't allowed to speak to women or interact in any way, and I think I was passing a note in an empty cigarette case to a girl, and I got caught and kicked out. So, yeah, real romantic.
That's a classic
Oh,
move.
for
I
sure.
like that.
Definitely.
Yeah. But, I got kicked out of there, and I stayed sober. I went to this sober living house that they found for me, and met a guy who was heavily into the recovery scene in Fort Lauderdale, which is huge. Columbus is comparable. I mean, there's a lot of meetings and a lot of treatment centers and a lot of recovery in Columbus, and Fort Lauderdale is kind of the same way. And so I got a job with him. I worked with people in recovery. I lived with people in recovery. I went to 10 meetings a week because I had nothing. I had no car, no way to get around. My whole life was recovery, and I stayed sober for another 2 months, which doesn't sound like a lot, but to me,
At that
I had
point in your
that
life,
point,
like 87
absolutely.
days.
Yeah,
I was
dude.
like, holy shit.
The Mental Defectives podcast is brought to you by Milligram's new EP, More is Always Better. 6 electrifying tracks available on all streaming platforms.
Prior to this, when you're doing you go to the same treatment 5 times in 6 months, like, are you like, I want to go to treatment, or is this like the baby mama and the parents shoving you in, or it's just like...
Well, it was really like, I'm out of money, I'm
Yeah.
dope sick, the door's locked to the house, like I can't be uncomfortable. I was one of those, like, if I'm dope sick for more than 6 hours, I got to figure something out.
Right, right.
And it was treatment was the easy option. So, yeah, I mean, I did that, and then I was convinced I was going to stay sober because everything the treatment centers I went to told me to do, I was doing. I had a sponsor. I was working steps, going to meetings, 90 and 90. I had surpassed that. I was doing all the things I was told to do to this point to stay sober. And life was good, on the outside anyway, life was good. I was working on yachts in Miami, and, my evenings were spent like at the beach, swimming in the moonlight and hanging out with girls and chilling with the dudes I'd met that I was close with. Like, it was just, if I had pictured somewhere I'd want to be, like 13-year-old me pictured somewhere I'd want to be, that would be it. Minus maybe the drug addiction and the recovery, but like,
Yeah.
it's a good life looking in from the outside. But I was miserable. I had a kid in Ohio that I hadn't seen or talked to. I had my parents who I had kind of had conversations with while I was down there, but I mean, my brother was serving in Kuwait at the time, and I hadn't talked to him at all. So I was happy on the outside and just like lost and miserable on the inside. And eventually I picked back up. I think it was a girl on the yacht that did Adderall, and she was like, "Hey, I got some Adderall." And I hadn't taken an Adderall since like junior high school. But
Yeah.
like, oh, what's the worst
so
that
many
could happen?
people relapse on like the corniest shit.
Oh, yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
Like, that's a perfect example of like an Adderall. Like, okay, whatever. And like, I haven't done, 10, 15 years, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's so crazy how that works.
Yeah. But I mean, I was off to the races. I did Adderall, and I remember the feeling after I took it. I was like, this is the longest point of sobriety I've had, and it's gone.
And I'm done.
It was just, I didn't think it would be that much of a hit emotionally, but I was just like devastated.
Yeah.
And I gave up, I wasn't about to tell anybody or go back to treatment. I just went and did my thing. Multiple sober livings while I was down there that I was using in, multiple, Airbnbs that some girl I met would pay for a week or whatever, and I'd stay there. Or, I lived with one of the captains of a yacht that I worked on for a while, and he had
Sounds awesome.
Yeah. If I wasn't held up in the bathroom shooting fentanyl, it probably would have been great.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I found a guy down there that randomly I was nodded off in a Walmart one day in a girl's car that I knew, and this really scary looking dude with grills and chains knocked on my window, and he was like, "Hey, try this." And handed me, I don't know, more dope than I could afford and gave me his phone number. And the next 3 months, he was my best friend, you know. And I somehow bought a little Honda Civic off of one of the addicts I knew down there for $250.
Hell yes.
And score. So I was sleeping
I don't
there.
care about year or mileage. $250 for any car is
Oh, it was a fantastic
crazy.
deal. Oh, it was a
yeah,
fantastic
no doubt.
deal. But yeah, I mean, it had like 2 nails in the tire that I would just air up. And
You
then
just
drive
keep
and go
airing
get
it
the
up,
dope.
dude. It's
And
fine.
It would overheat on the highway, so I'd be driving on ghetto side roads that I didn't know. But yeah, and then, I mean, eventually that ran out. You know, I didn't have a place to live. The captain found out I was getting high and ran out of money, didn't have anyone else to hustle. You know, I had hustled my parents out of anything I could think of. And I had $60 left on a Cash App card. And this was early 2021, so peak COVID. And a flight back to Ohio on Spirit Airlines was $27. So it's like, yeah. So it was like $35 with tax. And I had $25. And I remember riding a longboard because my car was out of gas. Riding a longboard like 5 miles to get one bag of dope before I got on the plane. And it was, yeah, that was it. I mean, I flew back to Ohio in February and got off the plane. It was snowing and cold and I didn't know what to do or where to go, but managed to get back in with my kid's mom and then randomly ran into this guy from at least 5 years ago that I used to sell weed for. I didn't even remember him, but now he had graduated to fentanyl dealer. And that was, when you asked about hustles earlier, that's what I was thinking of. That was a disaster of a time, but such a score also. He would front me an ounce of fentanyl at a time, and I cut it significantly. Significantly.
I mean, probably like saving people's lives.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
Right. Well,
ruining
yeah.
them, but yeah.
well, I mean,
Yeah. I
Trying to
remember
put a positive spin on it.
yeah, right. Yeah, there's no positive spin.
No.
It's just like
Yeah.
fucking people over
Yeah,
and
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
But, you know, I played dope boy for 3 months and I was terrible at it. So bad. I mean, I had my car broken into. Somebody, I ran around with these people and I hid it in, like, underneath the shifter in the car.
Uh-huh.
I would pop that piece off and stuff it in there.
Yeah.
And I thought I was so slick until one morning I came out and my window was busted. My passenger window was busted. And it was all gone. And I was just like, man, I am fucked. Like, oh, this dude, I don't have a clue what drugs go for these days. But I
was
think
gonna
it
say,
was
what
like,
was an ounce of fentanyl back then?
well, I paid like probably $2,500 because I was a junkie and he could get me to pay $2,500. I have no clue what the actual price would be. I didn't care. It was somebody
Right.
handing me an ounce of fentanyl. So,
So yeah, whatever. Okay.
yeah,
You did.
I'll give you my right arm for it. At this
Yeah.
point. But yeah, I mean that I owed him $1,400 at least, and had no options. So I drove that day. There was a guy who lived with his grandma directly across from the apartment where the dope man stayed, and I stayed there for a couple days, like on the low, and then I woke up one morning to loud bangs and police sirens. And it wasn't me, thankfully, you know, my selfish brain. It's not my door, but it got swatted. The dope man across the street.
Oh, the guy you owed the money to.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So the debt
Holy
is
shit.
wiped clean.
Yes, thank God. Thank God. You know, the plug's gone, but I'm not gonna die today. So
Right.
That's a positive. And then, you know, I checked into treatment. I couldn't I got less than no options at this point.
Right.
So I can't do this anymore. And I went to treatment again. This time I wasn't on my parents' insurance. I was on, you know, no insurance. So I walk into Mary Haven and they get me hooked up with the old government insurance.
Yep.
And I was demoralized. Every time I would check into treatment, after that first time, I had zero hope of getting sober. It was a pit stop. I knew in my heart I couldn't stay sober. I tried. I wanted to. The book says, we have moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we couldn't live up to them no matter how bad we would have liked to.
Right.
That's one of my favorite lines because I lived there for years. I wanted to be a good brother and son and employee and partner. That's what I wanted to do, but I didn't have the ability. I didn't have the power. And I'd given up. No hope. I figured if I checked into treatment this time, I would at least get enough of a tolerance break and separation to not be dope sick when I go back out. But I'd given up on being a dad. I didn't want to be in my kids' lives. I didn't want to be responsible for anyone but myself.
Yep.
I'd given up on being a son and an employee. It was just over with. But yeah, that was where I needed to be, I think.
Absolutely.
And I had found that bottom, I guess, which for me was a lot more glamorous than a lot of people. I'd overdosed a million times, yeah, but I wasn't homeless for extended periods of time, which is what I thought of when I thought drug addict or alcoholic.
Sure.
I'm like homeless. Nobody's talking to them. Haven't showered in months and nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And now that I've been in recovery for a while, I hear a lot of people's stories, and the bottom people talk about is way more a state of mind and spirit than physical, whatever's going on in your physical world. But I was there. I found it, and it was right where I needed to be. Just hopeless and no chance, not giving myself a chance. If you asked me, are you gonna make it? The answer would have been no. Yeah, I'm not. I'll die eventually doing this. I would live on this hill till I go. But people came into that treatment center and talked, which I had heard hundreds of times in the treatment centers I'd been to. All these people coming in, nice clothes, dressed up, talking about how good their lives are today and how bad they were, and just it didn't click, I guess. I didn't relate, or wasn't listening, or didn't paint myself in the same picture as them, whatever it is. But this time I did. I heard a guy who works at the House of Hope come in and talk about the same state of mind. He worded it perfectly, that his state of mind he described when he was using was exactly where I was, sitting in that chair, tucked under a blanket in Maryhaven withdrawing.
Right.
Yeah. And I just said, fuck it, I'll follow it, whatever I'm supposed to do. The House of Hope wouldn't pop up again after, a year for no reason. So I went with it and signed up, and that's where I ended up, And that really changed my life. Not because, I won't say it's different than a lot of treatment centers. It is in ways, but what the big difference was the steps. They, forced you had to. And I had worked the steps before. I had, had a sponsor. When I was in Florida, I'd met and did a fifth step, but it was like, I'm definitely not telling this old dude all the shit,
Right,
I can leave some of the really, really grimy stuff out and be okay. But I had gotten to this point where I was just no hope at all, and I was like, I'll do whatever these people tell me to, because maybe it worked for them, maybe it'll work for me, maybe it won't. But I got a sponsor and did the steps, and I could tell they were working. I did a 4-step. I got through the steps in treatment, and I did my 4-step And like, people talk about their favorite step, and the fourth is mine, not so much because of like all the stuff I wrote down and all that, but there's tools in there that I was able to put into practice immediately. And I don't know if it's the addict in me or what, but I need to see, you know, results if I'm doing something. Same way with getting high. Like, if I'm not getting results, and why am I doing
What am I doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I saw that, like, you know, I was in a treatment center with 20 dudes 100% of the time, and the resentments is really the one that I remember. The sick man's prayer, you know, this sick man, how can I be helpful to him? God, save me from being angry, thy will be done. My sponsor told me, you know, you need to do this. If you don't memorize it, you're not going to do it, so memorize it. And I memorized it, and I used it, you know, whether it was somebody, they put king size candy bars in the snack box and somebody got the last one, like, I'm throwing that prayer out there, you know, or the bigger stuff, like whatever it was, I did that. And I noticed quickly that, you know, I could run with being angry and self-pitying for years. I did, you know.
Yeah.
I was pissed off at the dude who stabbed me for years, and that was my reason to keep getting high. You know, poor me, you know, my life isn't going the way I wanted it to because of X, Y, and Z, so I'm going to do this. And I noticed when I started saying that prayer regularly, that mindset came less and less, and it was countered with, you know, what the book tells us, like, everybody's sick, everybody's selfish. Let's think of them as sick people rather than people who are out to get us and people who are out to harm us. And that blew my mind, because my sponsor emphasized the point of working steps was to have this psychic change, a change in the way my mind works. And I didn't see how that would be possible, because I tried for years to, you know, I did meditation, and I had all kinds of books on Zen and Buddhism and this, like,
Right.
I thought I was going to figure my way out of it eventually, but I'd put some serious effort into altering the way I think about things. And for some silly little 4-sentence prayer that I throw up every once in a while to give me that change so quickly, I kind of started to buy in to the process of working steps then. And so I went with it, and, you know, got through the steps in treatment, and was really not expecting it to work, even being through the steps and seeing, like, results. Like, I made amends while I was in treatment, and I made some big amends while I was in treatment, which I'm glad about, because there was, you know, a 4-hour window that I would leave treatment to go do this. So
the
whatever
clock is ticking, I gotta get this shit done.
No doubt.
the worst case scenario is only have 4 hours to play out. So regardless, it'll be okay. But, you know, my time came to an end at the treatment center, and I had to get a job. And I worked the same place for 3 years at that point, doing concrete. Somehow, through all my fentanyl addiction and all that, I kept a job except when I was in treatment there. I was resourceful in that way, I guess. But I was a fentanyl addict with a company credit card for a long time. Ooh. So here's another hustle, I guess. For the better part of a year, my morning would consist of getting up, going to Home Depot or Lowe's when they open.
I know where this is going, but please keep going. I'm dying to.
Oh God, buying a $300 DeWalt tool, and there was 2 options then. There was a group of Hispanic guys I knew that would pay me like $150 for the brand new $300 tool, and if I couldn't get them to answer, the pawn shop would give me anywhere between $60 and $80. And so that was daily for months, and I calculated it up one time. It's at least 20 grand.
Ooh. And what was the company that you were? I mean, don't name drop them, but like what kind of company?
Concrete. Yeah.
And they were
small and growing quickly. which was perfect for me because
Perfect timing for
yeah,
you.
they didn't have, accountants or financial managers or anything like that. It was the guy and his wife, and they were growing a lot. So they had bigger fish to fry than,
Yeah.
Yeah.
checking receipts on every purchase.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I'd worked up quite a tab there without them finding out, and I'd done this multiple times and gotten to treatment. Hey, boss man, I'm an alcoholic. I got to go dry up. That was all I ever told him. I mean, I'd 3 wrecks in company trucks that were a result of nodding off. Not like major wrecks, but I'd like nod off in traffic and rear end somebody.
Yep.
Or I remember one time I nodded off and hit a speed limit sign on the highway and knocked the mirror off the truck. Which, like, holy shit, man.
Yeah, dude.
I am driving an F550 loaded down with tools, and it is, I mean, you don't believe in God, there it is. Like, it's a miracle I didn't kill so many people, somebody every day,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's insane. But yeah, I told my boss, like, I'm an alcoholic, I need to go dry up. He was really cool about it. Go get your shit together, come back, you got a job. And so, I left the House of Hope for a 4-hour window to go make amends to him. And
I'm scared for you, and this already happened.
yeah. And his family is like old school Italian, so I'm playing through all these scenarios. I'm like, man, I tell him I stole 20 grand from him, he's gonna beat the shit out of
fucking
me.
whack you.
Worse, or,
Right.
God, he's gonna call the cops, like I'm gonna be a felon, because somehow I made it through, years of the addiction without catching a felony. But I show up to this job site, and I pull him aside. I'm like, hey, Jeff, can we talk? And he's like, yeah, man, are you ready to get out? You ready to come back to work? I'm like, we're getting real busy. And this is another place I saw the steps working, because, like, easy way out, hell yeah, I'll take that. But I'd had enough results to this point from working the steps to see, like, that is clearly my will. Like, if I took that offer,
Right.
I'm gonna be right back here trying to do it again, and God willing,
Yeah.
I was like, well, no, I need to talk to you for a minute, and I just, God took over at that point, and it just spilled out. I was like, I'm not an alcoholic. Well, I am, but I'm also a fentanyl addict, and I shoot meth occasionally, and I spend more time nodded off in the porta potty than I do working. And those trucks, those were not actually, somebody didn't knock my mirror off here, and I did this, and it all came out, and I was like, it felt like 10 seconds, but it had to be longer than that.
Yeah.
And then I'm just standing there, and he looks at me, and he was like, okay, well, thank you for telling me. I'm like, what?
Oh, shit.
No way, dude.
Yeah.
And he asked me a little bit about how I was stealing money. He was like, okay, well, that's good to know. And then he was like, all right, well, you can, start back whenever you're ready, and you can work for X amount less than you made before until you're paid up, and then, we'll see where it goes from here. And I mean, out of all the scenarios I played out in my head, the days leading up to that was not one of them. Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
no chance. But that's how recovery has gone for me, and working the steps has gone for me, that I have these certain expectations, and I have this underlying plan of what I think I should do. And then, God shows up in X or Y way and nudges me in this direction, and I have the faith to do it, and it works out in ways that I didn't expect or didn't think of or didn't think would be possible. And yeah, I mean, that was a real turning point for me. Really for my ego too, because I'm like, oh, thank God, I got my old job back. I'm good to go. Still big old concrete dude, ready to get out here. And
yeah.
But that took a lot of hits too, because I realized, I get out and go back to work, and I have 3 years of experience, but the majority of that time was spent getting high. And so, I'm the guy coming back to work who's got all this experience, who doesn't know jack shit. And so I was humbled very quickly. But I was given this opportunity, and I ran with it, and I kept running with it. I got out of treatment, and immediately my sponsor's like, you need to get out there and you need to sponsor people, because that's how this thing works. And so, the first couple weeks I was out, I got a sponsee at a meeting. I spent a lot of time just walking up to people and trying to get to know them, which I never did at meetings before. Meetings were a place where I could sit in the back and drink coffee and maybe find a future wife if I got lucky. Like, no interest in helping people or socializing. But, I got into sponsorship, and my first sponsee, I ran with a group of guys that was like, get the steps done fast and get to sponsoring people, because we're dying, basically. And so I worked through the steps in 2 months in treatment, got out and got a sponsee. And the first guy who asked me to sponsor him had more time than me. I had 5.5 months at this point. And I went to my sponsor. I'm like, dude, he's got more. Like, what do I do? And my sponsor's just like, you saw something in me. My sponsor tells me that you wanted. And that's why we worked through the steps together. That's why you asked me to work through the steps together, is because you saw something in me that you wanted. And so clearly this person sees something in you that he wants. And it made sense to me, because I would see these people come into treatment who looked like they had life in their eye. I don't know how to explain it other than that. It's just, for years in the mirror would see myself and just be this corpse just getting by. And I would see people come in that just looked alive, and I could recognize that in certain people. And so I went through the steps, and he didn't make it, and then I got another sponsee, and he didn't make 2 steps. I probably made it through. Yeah, I had high expectations for myself as a sponsor.
I think everyone does.
At first, it's always
I'm going to save all these guys, make them all together.
Yeah, I'm a saint. But I mean, it obviously has nothing to do with me or anything. But I have worked through the steps with quite a few guys at this point. It's been 3 years that I've been sponsoring people, and that is so fucking cool. I mean, I see people from my past when I was using come up to me and be like, man, I'm so proud of you. I'm so glad for you. And I get to have that feeling with guys in the room at this point now. And it's just awesome. I see people get their families back and get their careers on their feet. And it's just so cool, and something I never, like, at the point where I had just given up and checked into treatment, like, there was no hope. To be able to see people go from that to having that light in their eyes and looking alive again is so awesome. It's a blessing. It really is. And I can't think of anything I'd rather be doing.
Hell yeah. Hey, Mental Defectives.
Would you like to advertise on our podcast?
If so, email us at mentaldefectivespodcast@gmail.com.
So we can help you make a lot of money.
A whole lot of money. Okay, so you made your amends with the former boss, and they didn't whack you, and you got the job back. And then how did we get into starting your own concrete company?
Well, I worked up at that job pretty quickly. I came back and didn't know anything, and within a year I was running a crew. And then
it's amazing you can spend 3 years there using you're just nodding off the porta potty, stealing,
and then a year sober, and he's running
just
crews.
like shooting up.
So that that happened, and then another year I had gotten promoted again, so I'm a superintendent running multiple crews, and my company is still on. I'm still working full time for that company.
Oh, okay.
And I've got the LLC on the side, which is taking off quicker than I expected. But that's another nerve-wracking area where I'm doing a whole lot of prayer, because now, you know, I've got my kids back in my life. I bought a house in March. I've got all these responsibilities, and it almost feels selfish. And I'm doing a lot of prayer and trying to gauge the next step, you know, carefully and correctly. But it feels selfish to just jump into that without being more concrete. Forgive me.
More concrete.
Having a better foundation, if you will. But yeah, I mean, it's...
I get it.
You started it, I ended with it. You know?
Sounds like you've got a real concrete plan in place.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But no, I'm comfortable and happy where I'm at. I'm able to keep a roof over my family's head. I have, you know, my fiance and her 2 daughters in my life now. We just had a daughter in last January, a year now. So I have 5 daughters who...
Girl dad.
Oh, man.
Dude.
So
Basketball
cool.
team.
I wish. It'd be a dance squad playing on a basketball team. But, you know, I'm responsible for more people than myself today.
Yeah.
And so selfishly, yeah, I would quit my job and live in a fucking van and then start a company, and could probably do it and succeed. But I'm at this point where I'll take consistency and stability and dabble a little bit with this deal on the side. And I enjoy it, and I still learn every day in my full-time job. You know, there's a whole lot to running a business, and the owner, my boss at the current company I'm at is, I mean, obviously a good dude, because he took me back 5 times fresh out of rehab, but he's also another part of that amends talk was, hey, I'm somebody who will float you a couple $100,000 to start a company start your own thing if it gets to that point.
He said that to you? Get
the in my amends.
That's amazing.
It was crazy.
When you gave your amends, he said,
Yes.
listen,
Yep.
if you want to start your own thing.
That was the end of the conversation.
Fuck out of here.
I know.
And you're sure he's not connected?
Yeah,
Like a mafia.
now, did you pay him back? Is he paid off?
Oh yeah,
Dude, that's amazing.
Within 5 months, I think it took.
Fuck yeah.
Damn. All right, here's what you do. You tell him I want to start a podcast. I got to get 2 guys on. I just need a quick $300,000 to get it up and running off the ground.
Amen.
Shit.
Amen.
Oh my God, we pay our producer in cornbread.
Yeah, we do.
Oh my God. Okay, what advice would you have for someone like dabbling, getting the LLC going?
It's super easy. I was shocked. I was so shocked. And it wasn't expensive. I'm fully insured, bonded in a couple of different cities, and have the LLC, and it cost me less than $1,000 to do.
Damn.
And it was incredible. I was shocked, and you know, I'm surrounded by good people, so I would get that first too.
Yeah.
Get a foundation, get a group of guys around you who can tell you how it is, you know, and go with it from there. Like it was a process that was way more simple than I thought it was going to be.
What kind of jobs do you guys do?
I do a lot of remodeling at this point. So I was working with a couple general contractors in the area, and they would give me, you know, here's a driveway that needs torn out and replaced. Here's a patio they want to add. Here's a sidewalk. Here's a basement that needs refinished. You know,
Your name comes up probably once a month in my household.
Yeah.
About doing our driveway.
Yeah. it's there.
If someone wants to get a driveway or patio or whatever, how do they get a hold of you?
Holmes Concrete Construction LLC. I have a Facebook page, and I can plug my phone number too.
I don't know if we want to do that necessarily. I mean, it's on you. It's whatever.
Maybe in the comments.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
What advice we have for somebody who's freshly sober or freshly like trying to get sober?
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
Do the steps. And one piece of advice, I see a lot of guys debating on a sponsor like it's, this big grand thing. Like, and I was told for years, find somebody who has what you want. And I took that as, I need to find a dude with tattoos and a pretty girlfriend and a nice car. And I did that. And actually, this time when I got sober, I did that. And my sponsor relapsed within the first month of working with him. No qualms there. But
Right.
It's the thing you want to look for is that light in their eyes, and that like they look like they're enjoying life. And somebody who has a working knowledge of the program of recovery and the 12 steps. Because that was huge. My sponsor, it was clear as my sponsor walked me through it that he knew what he was talking about. And I could see that from just seeing him in meetings and hearing him talk. Like, he was passionate about the steps and he was knowledgeable about the steps, and he had clearly gotten something out of it from the way he talked. But for someone new in recovery, go to a meeting, find somebody who looks like they have a passion for recovery, and ask them to sponsor you, and then don't hesitate. Just this week, I've worked through steps 1 through 4 with a guy in 3 meetings of an hour. And if you're ready, it's there for the taking. This guy's blowing my phone up. Hey, I got this part of my list done. Can we go over it? And I call him real quick, 10 minutes, lay out the next part.
Yeah.
Got this done. Like, it's readily available. Recovery and being recovered from alcoholism is readily available.
I like it.
Hell yeah.
I like it.
And then Luke, last thing before we got out of here, you had told me before we got rolling that you were going to lay out and explain exactly where all your secret fishing spots are. Can you please look into this camera here and let us know your best fishing spot? It's the Most Defectives podcast. It's Milligram, Jerry with G, Luke, Holmes Concrete LLC.
Yep.
Get some concrete, for fuck's sake. We'll see you.
Oh man, that was cool.